All right, so here we go. We have Ring of Honor Showdown in the Sun from WrestleMania weekend. You know, if you saw some of the reviews on YouTube for these shows, they don't really. It's kind of tough to get a feel for just how good they were. Obviously, there was a lot of issues with Go Fight Live, which I'm very, very glad that they're done with. The Go Fight Live was a terrible provider for iPay-per-view, but we still don't know where they're headed now with the next pay-per-view provider, but we should find out pretty shortly. Yeah, and I'd have to say these were the worst WrestleMania weekend shows. You know, if you're going to look at these shows from top to bottom, they definitely were a step weaker than the Phoenix shows. I thought the Phoenix shows were pretty unspectacular for WrestleMania weekend shows, but these were, you know, just totally. I mean, you just can't compare it to 2006 and 2008. It's just they just don't hold up, and I don't know. I just thought these shows were very repetitive. I just felt like we were seeing the same shit over and over again, but at the same time, I'll give them credit. They did produce one of the greatest matches in ROH history, and probably a certified 5-star match. I believe the first match Dave Meltzer gave 5 stars, I guess, since Joe versus Punk from 2004. So that would be Davey versus Elgin. I'll get more into that later, but yeah, you know, you've seen so many reviews for these shows. I'm not going to give you a match-by-match analysis for everything. I'm not really going to go into depth. We'll just briefly go over it. So this was night one, or day one, actually. I mean, the Briscoes had a match against Mikey, Nicholls, and Shane Haste. I believe those guys were in Pro Wrestling Noah. They were over there, and they looked pretty solid against the Briscoes. You know, just a nice, solid television match to open up the show. That was okay. The Young Bucks versus the All Night Express. I actually thought this was their better match of the weekend. This is just you know, a tornado tag. You know, pretty good stuff, but really nothing to go out of your way to see. Jay Lethal versus Kyle O'Reilly. The television title was on the line. Just, you know, pretty standard stuff. You know, I really can't say much about the match. It was just, you know, it felt like your Sinclair broadcast television type of match. Really didn't get going for me. Next up we had Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin taking on Caprice, Coleman, and Cedric Alexander. Once again, just pretty average. Really, you know, the finish was cool, but the match itself was not that good. Caprice, Coleman, and Cedric Alexander, I'm starting to kind of lose my patience with them. I just don't think they're good enough to be in a Ring of Honor right now. I don't know. I just don't see it anymore. So next up we had Lance Storm versus the Prodigy Mike Bennett, which was a good match, but I wasn't really sold on Bennett. Really, his offense and just the way he moves in the ring is just, it's not a pretty thing to watch. But, you know, Lance Storm, 43 years old, he could definitely still go. A great storyline progression because they'll be having another match coming up at Border Wars. So that was good. It was still a 3.5-star match. Just, you know, definitely the best match of the show up to that point. Next up, we had Kevin Steen and El Generico, the last man standing match. You know, we've seen these guys wrestle so many times, and they never have failed to disappoint. I mean, every single match they've had has been pretty much, you could consider great, from their Bola match to the Steen Wolf match to the Final Battle match to the Death Before Dishonor 8 match. And here we go again, last man standing. You know, probably not their best match, but you can make a strong case that this was their most entertaining and most enjoyable. I mean, it was just nonstop action, totally fun. You know, you wouldn't be bored for a moment if you watched this match. Just, like I said, last man standing. They did some really awesome stuff. There was a stage for WrestleMania weekend, so they did some really awesome stuff off the stage. And, Jimmy Jacobs actually turned heel and helped Kevin Steen win the match. It's about time. You know, Jacobs has pretty much been under the radar, doing absolutely nothing ever since he came back with Steve Corino. But, you know, hopefully Jimmy Jacobs becomes more of a focal point for the Ring of Honor product like he did in 2007, 2008. So I have no problem with that. Like I said, 4.25 stars. Definitely go out of your way to see it. Definitely the match of the night. And, you know, obviously it's tough to compare it to the Final Battle match and the Steen Wolf match because the brutality of those matches is just unparalleled. But like I said, that match right there, it's just so much. It was so much fun to watch. All right, next up we had Davey Richards versus diehard Eddie Edwards versus Roderick Strong in a triple threat match for the Ring of Honor World Championship. The same rules as the Big Bang. It was pretty much a 3-way dance. So Eddie Edwards was the first one eliminated, but still, these three guys, you know, a lot of people are sick of watching them wrestle. We've seen it over and over again. You know, if someone thought, you know, I don't feel like watching this, it's the same old shit, I can't necessarily disagree with you, but, you know, the great thing about this was it only went about 18 minutes. I pretty much had the same thoughts as everybody else. You know, it didn't feel like it wasn't a chore to watch like Davey Richards versus Eddie Edwards, that final battle. And you know, I mean, maybe there'll be some criticism about this match because you're so sick of watching these guys, but I still appreciated the athleticism, still appreciated the effort, the strikes, the stiffness, the execution of you know, some of the pinfalls were pretty good. You know, I could have done with that Truth Martini at ringside. But still, I'll still give it about a solid 4 stars. I just think Davey Richards needs a new finisher. I think part of the reason why Davey's title reign's kind of been unspectacular. Number one, the MMA stuff, the jiu-jitsu, that's kind of been forced in our throats. The association with Kyle O'Reilly's hurt his reign. On top of that, he's facing the same guys over and over again. Roderick Strong, Eddie Edwards, you know, both guys, really don't offer anything to Davey in the personality department to bring the best out of him in his promos. So I definitely think that hurts. And on top of that, I just think he's a better heel. You know, if you told me in 2007 that eventually Davey Richards is going to be the top babyface Ring of Honor World Champion, I would have laughed in your face. I just don't think he's really suited for what he's doing right now. I think Davey is a natural heel. You know, the 2009 Davey from Supercard of Honor 4 when he took on Kenta, you know, that's the Davey that should be world champion. So there we go with that. Definitely do want to touch on Kenta and the tag team division, so hopefully I don't forget to talk about that. But here we go with night 2 or day 2. Overall, this was definitely the better show from top to bottom, but it's, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was. But this really, until the main event, this show was seriously lacking. But I think what they were trying to go for, they were trying to have a pretty watered down undercard. And, you know, if you compare this to WrestleMania weekend from last year, these shows just don't hold up. There's just, I mean, WrestleMania weekend from Atlanta and, you know, from Houston and from Chicago and from Orlando, those shows just gave you so much more from top to bottom. With this, you know, you pretty much got a full show of like television, you know, type matches, or matches that you would think could have been on Sinclair broadcast. But, you know, I think they really wanted to save the crowd for that main event and just, you know, deliver the greatest match in Ring of Honor history, or one of the greatest matches in Ring of Honor history. So I'll give them credit for that. If they were kind of, I know Jim Cornette actually had a meeting backstage. The Next Big Thing told me about this, Brian. And he said that Cornette had a meeting with everyone and said, we cannot go over 3 hours again because of what happened at Final Battle with all the negative reviews of Final Battle. So maybe that was the mindset. Maybe they just wanted to ensure that they would have a crowd that was extremely into the main event. And that's what they accomplished. All right, so like I said, man, just this card was seriously lacking. Jimmy Jacobs versus Generico didn't live up to his potential, but I thought Jacobs cut a really awesome promo at the start of the show. Cedric Alexander took on the dominant male Tomasso Ciampa in a very, very forgettable match. Ciampa's just, if I were Ring of Honor, I would just let him go. You know, if his match coming up against Jay Lethal, if that disappoints and doesn't deliver, it's time to pull the trigger. I mean, it's been almost a year now. Next we had Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole. Oh, I'm sorry, TJ Perkins versus Fire Ant. You know, it was, for the time that it went, it was really, really cool. It was just, you know, those two guys were, you know, have very, very similar styles. They're very, very quick. They're lightning fast. But at the same time, the match really left you wanting a lot more. And it really didn't do anything to escalate any type of Chikara, Ring of Honor friction. Even though the fans were chanting Chikara and some fans were chanting ROH, so that was cool. Next up, you had Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole, the Battle of Future Shock. Kyle O'Reilly gets a lot of heat, but I don't really think it's good heat. I just think he gets the kind of heat that, you know, he's so bad on the mic and just so, I don't know, just so unnatural that I think that's why he's getting so much, you know, of the fans to kind of, you know, detest him. Adam Cole, on the other hand, I think he's doing a good job. You know, some of his comeback lines towards O'Reilly, the PMS line on television, that was cool. But this match, just not as good as their Young Lions Cup match. You know, just a 2.5-star match. Just the crowd wasn't into it. You know, it just felt like they were holding back. I just think it could have been so much better. The Young Lions match in Chikara was definitely recommend checking that out. This was not indicative of what they could do together. Just not a good showing from both guys. All right, next up we had the Young Bucks versus the All Night Express. The duel match number 2. This ended up being a street fight. I didn't like this at all. even though they had, some crazy stuff going on, they did some of the jackass spots with the shopping cart. I didn't care for that. The finish was a triple suplex through a table. Just a lot of crappy. It just felt like your generic indie, street fight. I just couldn't get into it. I think the All Night Express is stale right now. It's time to split them up. And I'll say this about the Young Bucks and Ring of Honor. It's not the same Young Bucks from PWG. They're definitely a little bit more toned down. If I were Ring of Honor, I would split up a lot of the tag teams and really have the Young Bucks as the World Tag Team Champions, and just try to bring in as much new indie talent as you can, and just try to find that next new tag team, because I think a lot of these tag teams have just run their course, and since the Kings of Wrestling have lost the belts, the tag team titles just don't seem to mean as much anymore. I really believe that, and the tag division is just so bad right now. I just don't give a fuck about any of the teams right now. So let's move on to the next match. Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin taking on the Briscoes. And, as far as tag teams go, I feel like if you take Jay Briscoe, Shelton Benjamin, and Kenny King and put them in the singles division, I think that will add so much more depth to the roster. We'll see a lot of refreshing matchups. So why not just do that? You could always come back to the tag teams, maybe on a house show, have certain guys tag back up together. But, why not just establish Jay Briscoe as the, a singles wrestler, man. He's so hot right now. So many people, I think even Gabe Sapolsky pitched the idea of, Jay Briscoe versus Davey Richards. That should be your main event for the 10th anniversary show. So, that's a match that I would definitely want to see. And, maybe if you push Shelton as a singles guy, maybe he'll become more inspired. That's a possibility. Kenny King's been ready to be a major single star for a while now. So why not just pull the trigger on those guys, if they're stale, and they really are stale. Next up, we had the Briscoes taking on Haas and Benjamin. And I didn't like this match at all. Just another crappy match from them. I remember the 9th anniversary show match. People were saying, yeah, it was pretty good to great match, but they could do a lot better. Now, looking back on it, their 9th anniversary show match is never going to be topped. And some people thought this might have ended the feud. If anything, they were going to have another match at Border Wars, a street fight between these two teams. Hopefully, they could give us something to write home about, but I doubt it. And just another match. I wasn't even that big of a fan of the finish. This kind of disappointed me. I thought the crowd was definitely lacking here. There just wasn't enough to go crazy about. The Briscoes did hit some. They did break up some of Haas and Benjamin's moves, which came out pretty smooth. But other than that, just really nothing to. Just a 2 3/4 star match. Just pretty crappy stuff. Next up, we have Eddie Edwards versus Kevin Steen. Good while it lasted, but it felt very, very short. It seemed like they were really holding back. I think Eddie did a double stomp off the stage, and Steen hit some pretty hard-hitting offense once they got back into the ring. But yeah, just not a WrestleMania worthy match. You just would have expected a lot more, but I understand what they were doing. They were really trying to, save the crowd for that main event. So next up, we had Jay Lethal versus Roderick Strong. Tomasso Ciampa actually stole the television championship, and he was forced by Ring of Honor to bring it back to Jay Lethal. So he made a deal with Jay Lethal that if Jay Lethal does defeat Roderick Strong for the belt, he will shake his hand and actually say that Jay Lethal was the better man. Tomasso just sucked on the mic there. He got a huge boring chant. I just thought that whole thing was pointless, and I thought it really hurt the match how he was at ringside, and Truth Martini was at ringside distracting Lethal. Not Truth Martini. Excuse me. I think it was just Tomasso Ciampa that was at ringside distracting Jay Lethal. I just think Lethal and Roderick could have had a much better match than what they gave. The reaction for Roderick wasn't what I was led to believe. It was just a lukewarm title win. Roderick Strong winning the World Television Championship is kind of below his resume, but 3 1/4 star match, definitely the match of the night up to that point. And next up, we have Davey Richards versus Michael Elgin. I'll say this: the match was 5 stars, definitely. Nigel's commentary was amazing. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was the greatest thing he ever did, like C-Dude was telling me, but just awesome stuff, man. Michael Elgin became a star here. I think Elgin really should have won the belt. Given how stale Ring of Honor is right now, I think it would have gave the company a huge shot in the arm. I feel like if Elgin did win this match, I'm going to say this would have been arguably the greatest Ring of Honor world title change in history, maybe even beating out the Austin Aries one. Because I definitely think that was probably, Ring of Honor's greatest title change. But, if Elgin did win this match, it would have been amazing. And the crowd was awesome here. Elgin's facial expressions and the way he kicked out of, some of those near falls just really made the match. And give Davey credit too, man. He really brought it. This was a throwback to some of Davey's stuff from 2009 with a lot of intensity, a lot of aggressiveness. He really kind of limited the jiu-jitsu stuff and the MMA stuff in this match and just went full out professional wrestling. And Elgin, man, I've really sold on him now, man. This guy is the real deal. So definitely a great showing from him. And I believe Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars. So that would be the first match. I believe the first match in the United States that's gotten 5 stars since Punk and Joe. So congratulations to both guys. I definitely think, I wouldn't say it's the greatest match in Ring of Honor history. Might not even say it's better than Davey Kenta or Davey Tyler. But it's still, it's still the match of the year. It's still probably better than any Ring of Honor match from 2011 for sure. So definitely go out of your way to see that match. Like I said, there's 3 matches to check out from these shows. Steen and Generico, Last Man Standing. The triple threat match between Roderick, Eddie, and Davey was a lot of fun. It was a breath of fresh air because they didn't go too long, and I thought they worked extremely hard for the amount of time that they were given. So definitely check it out. It's a solid 4-star match. And Davey versus Elgin, it's a Ring of Honor classic. Possibly a top 10 Ring of Honor match of all time. So that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed the review, and take it easy.